All right, so let's talk about how to strip these multi-conductor cables. So most of these have several layers of insulation on them, and I want to strip this back about 3 inches. So I'm going to use my knife and kind of use it like a peeling knife or a paring knife, and roll around there and cut through this first jacket, bend it so it breaks up free, and then I can pull it off. And then we got this twisted fine metal shield, wire shield. This is for noise and durability, and so we'll take all that back and use a pair of electrician's scissors and cut it all back nice. As close as possible. Okay. Then there's a single shield or drain wire here. We don't need that, so we'll just cut that off. And then there's this tin foil, and I'm finding where it starts here. And if I just make a little snip on it, usually it'll tear all nice around there. Then I've got this powdered paper. Same thing, I'm going to pull it back. Wipe all the powder off there. And then inside here, you have to be careful because these wires are all twisted around a central bundle of plastic fiber, and this is what gives your cable strength. So I'll just get up next to it and cut it off. Alright, so now I've got these individual wires, and we're going to use all of them pretty much. So red and black are the first ones. So I'm just going to go through all these and strip them off. Okay, if you look at the cable, and written on the outside of the cable, every so often, I'm trying to find it for you here. Right here it says alpha wire, part number, 12 conductor, 24 AWG. So that's 24 gauge. So if I go down here and I get my wire strippers and I find the 24 gauge slot, strip off about 1/4 of an inch, and I just do that to all these wires. So find the 24 and go about 1/4 of an inch. If you Okay, so, all right, so I've done the first few. You get the picture. Now, I like to use a wire ferrule. Okay, you don't have to use this. I suggest you do. But if you're not going to use a wire ferrule, then twist these strands so you can screw on them without a a stray strand going into the hole next to it. But I use these wire ferrules, which are little metal sleeves, and this crimping tool. And this has a hex die, but they also come with square dies or triangle dies. I like the hex die. So you put the metal in all the way. Oops. Put the metal in all the way. Put your wire in it. Crimp down on it. And then it crimps it. And now this can't pull off. These ferrules come in different sizes for different sizes of wire. Twist the wire up and slide the ferrule on it. And crimp it. And then you just do that, rinse and repeat. The smaller wire is going to be the same thing. You're going to cut the outer jacket off. You're going to have this wire. You're going to have the tin foil. Let's go through and cut all these off. And twist this foil and find that little seam right there. You can use your scissors or your knife and cut it, and when you do, it rips up around a lot easier, a lot cleaner. Come on. There we go. Take this powdered paper off there. This one doesn't have as big a wad of polyfiber. Cut that. Okay. What's this say? This says sometimes you gotta, oh, there it is, 4 conductor 20 gauge. So this is 20 gauge wire. So we get on the 20 gauge slot and take off about 1/4 of an inch. That's why I have a garbage can below it, because there's all these little pieces of insulation, but twist them nice. And get the 20 gauge. I do have these kits that I can sell you. This wire is not cheap wire. It is high flex robotics wire. It's about $5 a foot. You got to buy it in 1,000-foot reels. I do. I cut it and kit it with the connectors. So that gives you all of those ferrules that'll go really nice into the connectors. Okay, so that's how you do these wires and ferrules. Okay, that's it. Alright, so when we're wiring the cables from the machine to the electrical cabinet, as I said in previous videos, some of you have these green connectors. Some of you just have a central cover like that. Either way, there's green connectors involved. So, alright, so these green connectors have screws in these ears that you have to loosen up, and then you can pull the connector out like that. Alright, now there's a schematic available for different machines. I can get that to you upon request. Okay, so these connectors also have these covers. I want to point out that I use two sizes of screwdriver, a 5/64 and a 3/32. 5/64 works good for these bigger connectors. You want a screwdriver that's going to take up the whole screw slot usually, and this works for either place. All right, typically we wire from left to right. So in the case of the X motor, which has 4 connectors, we want to put it through here, through the cover, like this. We'll come back to that, but we want to get that on there. So these motors go red, white, black, green. And you can look in here to see if the connector is open or closed. So you just put the little ferrule in there and push it in as far as you can and tighten it down. You want to get them all in there, just like that. I'm going to tighten them down pretty tight. Sometimes after you've done this work, you even want to go back and check it. So this connector goes up here. Now, see, I gotta kind of, what I want to do is I want to stay on the cable with this clamp. So we'll tighten that down. This is where they got smart and they made Phillips screws instead of straight screws. Less likely to slip off of them. Okay, then I'm going to kind of push this up in here so it sits on there like that. And then I want to put this half on. Get that all lined up like that. There you go. So I need to change that label so it says X, but you can just pop the label out like this with your screwdriver. Then you can write on it with a Sharpie and put it back in there. Alright. And then these are a little more tricky. You don't want to be working over the garbage can sometimes. I see how that's curved because that cable is small. I put it on this direction so the curve pushes down on the cable. You'll see that on your machine. Just pay attention to it if it's there anyways, but I don't use power tools with this stuff. Too delicate. Okay. And then this connector is going to end up going in there. So some of our wires are going to have to get bent around like this and put into the first hole. So it can be a little tricky to get all these wired in, but it'll work out. So let me do that and come back to you. Okay, so here I've got all the wires in this connector, and I'm going red, black, white, yellow, green, blue, and then violet, brown, and orange, then gray, tan, and pink. And if I kind of carefully bend those wires around and tuck those up in there, they'll fit in there just like that. And then I can put the other half on. So this has got these little clips. So get everything all lined up. Make sure this is in here like that. There. Again, these can be taken out and labeled. Just clip them out and write on the label there's a label inside of here. Little white label. See that from the back side? So, oops, I just dropped it in the garbage. I'll have to fish it out and then snap it back on. Alright, that's how that works. Okay, so these are my two X cables that I was working on. I'll stuff those back down in there. And this is the X cable here, the encoder, and this is all low voltage encoder, home switch. And on the Y there will be an extra wire for the brake. And then this is the power for the X motor. And that will go in there like that. And later we'll make all that fancy and clean back there. I'm not going to screw those down right now because I'm going to have these in and out 3 or 4 times. So that's how that works. All right.